Welcome back to the Shadûf podcast, where every week we try to bring you some business tips that are based on actual research, actual data, and we break it down for you so it's not boring. We try and make it fun and entertaining and kind of have a discussion about it. And now we've started recently recording these live, so we can have people join in on the discussion wherever you're watching from or listening from. But yeah, welcome. I'm your host, Weston Smith, here with Head of Research, Dustin Harding, and Rachel Hansen, who is a digital marketing coordinator here at the Woodbury School of Business. So this is the third time we're going live, and it's really cool and exciting. It's been really fun. We're going to try and get some audience participation in this one. We didn't really do that in the last one. It was just kind of rude.
Yeah, rude of us.
Rude.
Gosh, we're rude.
So bad. Yes, but we've got a topic today that's really, really awesome, really interesting. And Dustin's going to introduce it here in just a minute. But I'm someone, I don't know about you guys. Well, I do know about you guys. I do know this about you guys. I'm the kind of person who can't help but kind of always let my personality kind of I can't hold it in, right?
It's like the Hulk with personality. Like it just kind of, there goes my personality.
I know.
Then it's all over.
I wake up in the morning and I'm like, whoa, personality, it's just kind of radiates off of me. And you guys are similar. You guys are two very charismatic people. We all are social people. We like to talk. Have you guys ever had a
yes.
Okay, I know you have.
I have no idea what you're going to say.
A joke that you've always tried, or something funny that you've tried to say, but it's never ever landed for you. It's never landed. It's never worked. You guys be thinking about that. I have one, and I was thinking about it just today. It's so bad. It's just as a preface, you guys. As a preface, it's not going to sound funny because I'm not doing it in the right timing. So.
Okay. Oh yeah, of course. That's the reason why.
I'm giving myself an excuse. And also, it never has been funny to anyone.
Ever. Try one more time. Just hit us.
Every time I've tried, it's failed. And by the way, guys, I'm going to try this time, and it's probably going to fail, but it's not because of me.
No,
it's because
I'm explaining it. I'm giving... Because I'm not doing it at the moment. And it's never landed, and I've tried several times because I think it's funny, but I guess it's not. Here's what it is, okay? There are, when you're eating with plastic utensils, I thought about it today because I was eating some leftovers, okay? And I had a plastic utensil, and in the break room, there's the white plastic utensils, like the cheap plastic kind of, and then there's like ones that are a little bit more durable, that are the clear plastic, okay? This is so stupid, and maybe it's just too nerdy, I don't know, but whenever I'm around people, because I remember this joke when I saw the utensils sitting there, I remember this joke that I've tried to use several times in like camping, like out camping, or something, or like at a barbecue, anytime they have these utensils, and like if I see that there are some that are the clear plastic, and some that are just the white plastic, I always say, oh no, the cloaking device on your fork has run out, or something dumb like that. Anyways, I've tried different versions of it, and it's never landed.
Because they're clear?
Because they're clear.
I think that's funny.
Well, thanks, Rachel. You're the first.
I don't
Maybe we could workshop it and see what,
All right, and I'm usually not a joke person, but with my in-laws, I'm always the person. They have so many inside jokes and movie quotes, and I'm always the person that's like, wait, what are you talking about? I'm like, don't worry, it's from a movie. Or like, you weren't around when that happened. I'm like, oh, I'm always the one that's on the outside.
So you're the one that people try and like say funny things around, and you just kind of stare at them. And
yeah. I I mean, I'm not that ditzy, but if I was like,
No.
like movies, no, too
A
far.
reference joke.
Yeah, but I don't do those very good.
That makes sense.
A fork joke, I can do that.
Good.
That's
Okay.
fine.
See, in the office with all of our wonderful workers, like
Mm-hmm.
you know, Wes and I quote movie quotes all the time,
All
and
the
it
time.
lands every time.
Every time.
Every time.
People love it, and they clamor for more. They cheer for us, and they hoist us up on their shoulders, and as they're laughing, and they just are like, "We love you guys, and we think you're so funny."
Kelly, shake your head. No, that doesn't happen. I don't know. I'm not around your office enough.
There's a
but-
little bit of a generation gap, and they normally have no idea what we're quoting, but we kind of.
Which is so weird because I don't feel that old. Is that weird, you guys? Even saying that already like means it means that you are old.
You don't feel it.
Let's see. Let's see. One thing I always like to do is pretty much any time somebody says that something's intense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, that's intense. It's like just like camping.
Just like camping.
And most of the time they don't know what I'm talking about, but that
Or they've heard it so many
or
times.
they've heard it so many times. It's not.
I never
like,
heard that one.
I just can't resist. I just can't resist. But
Or I love it when someone says like, okay, so someone's like, I love queso. You know,
Oh yeah. Yep.
that's when you get a lot.
I still don't
That's
get
good.
it.
Queso.
Queso,
Queso.
like
Cheese.
K,
Mm.
comma S-O. Okay, so next we're gonna do this.
Yeah, if you're talking and you're like, okay, or like, okay, so, and then someone's like, oh, I love queso.
Okay, gotcha. I missed the first part.
Now that's
I
one
missed the
Dustin's
first
going to be
part.
using all the time.
All I heard is you know when someone says I love queso, and I'm like, I don't get the because I missed the first part.
I gotcha.
Queso. I think I'm uber sensitive to things like that though. So if there's things like camping, you know, that I'll say just because I like to be a dork sometimes, and I know that it's not funny.
Oh yeah.
But if I'm really trying to be funny and it doesn't land, that just gets kind of locked into my brain like do not use again.
Just to take notes, that's good.
Well, and that's how probably I should be, but I'm just like, no, it's too good. I've got to try it again.
New audience, try again.
Let's see what lands with these guys. Maybe the problem is other people.
Or maybe it's the same audience, just a different time, right?
They'll have forgotten my last try.
I had a coach who would always say, makes sense. And then we would all say, makes money. Like
sense.
and money. So now sometimes when I write an email, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Makes money.
You spell it with the C-E-N-T.
No, I don't.
Oh.
I don't. That's not professional. But I think about it every time.
Makes sense.
It's funny.
I'm just gonna say, does that make money? No.
Yeah, does that make money? As in sense?
Makes sense. Yep.
Well, that's great. All right. So now, as we've kind of just, been jovial in front of a live audience while recording our podcast, Dustin, tell us what we were talking, the research that we're going to be talking about today.
Okay, so it's funny, like we're live streaming right now, right? But we're talking about live streaming specifically in sales events. If you're selling a product or service and you're doing a live stream in front of multiple people, there's this cool research. It's called New Livestream Retail Analytics Framework to Assess the Sales Impact of Emotional Displays. So pretty much what it says is during these live stream events, what's the impact of emotions from the seller? And it's pretty cool. They used there was a company that apparently has a bunch of salespeople that and they're pretty much constantly broadcasting live events.
Like all the time, and selling
all
products.
The time. Selling products.
Okay.
It almost they don't say infomercially. They don't say infomercial, but it's almost sounds a bit infomercially. But they're constantly doing it.
You wouldn't think it was infomercials just with that knowledge that they're constantly doing it, and that's
on TV apparently.
With infomercials.
On TV.
You guys, infomercials. I don't know about you guys. Would you ever like fall asleep watching TV and wake up with the TV still on?
Yes.
And that would be in the hours of infomercials, and you'd be like, "This is lame. My cool show is over," but you just get sucked into these things. These people were so convincing of these products. You're just like, I'm not an adult, but I know that this would solve all my problems. This product is.
The best
I need this power hose or whatever they have.
My grandma would always buy the things, and so then we'd go to grandma's house and be like, "Hey, we saw this on TV." My dad's like, "Shh, don't say anything." I'm like, "Grandma, you bought this."
That is wonderful.
She's amazing. But
Or do they still have that store as seen on TV?
As seen on TV.
Yeah,
That's
they
right.
would
Yeah.
sell like a lot of those. Yeah, I'd see those all the time. The late at night thing. Yeah, I guess that was like the cheapest time for them to get space.
Cheapest time. I think that's when a lot of older people are watching, and they're like, and they're
People who
probably.
buy
I mean,
it.
maybe it's a generational thing, but maybe at that time, those were the people who were like. Well, I mean, those were the people, I guess, but also
You have less
all
self-control.
of us.
You get so late and you're so tired.
and enough money to buy that kind of stuff.
Well, but I'm like, I was even young, and it worked on me. Like, you just think like, I've got to have that. I've got to have it.
Yeah, and it's usually they're like weird things that
Yeah.
you have a need for, you didn't know you needed, or it's like, oh, that's way better than what I have.
Right.
So
whether or not it was
maybe wasn't on
infomercials.
TV. I'm looking at, but yeah, it
But
almost
nowadays-
sounds like that. Yeah.
We're live streaming more often than we're.
Yeah, and so this is like this is a recent paper. It was published in the Journal of Marketing, but yeah, so they grabbed this data it was going pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They got 3 years worth of this data.
Wow.
And so it was in the end they had 62.32 million frames. I guess it was 2 years, over 2 years.
Over 2 years. Okay.
Yeah, so
A lot of data still.
that's a lot of data. And what they did was using software. We actually at Shadûf Biometrics, we have a similar software that, like if we're streaming or on camera. It looks at the micro expressions in your face and can tell kind of what emotions are being displayed.
Right.
So they were able to use this camera, to use that software to look at all the different salespeople and the emotions that were displayed, how often the face was shown on the screen,
Okay.
different things like that. So they just captured all of these micro expressions in these sales events that were typically, I think, like 30 minutes to a half hour long.
Right.
Every time.
Now, just as a quick clarification, they're not recording the audience because this is just being broadcast to whoever.
Right.
So it's people watching, sitting on their couch in their living room on their laptop or something, or on their phone watching these salespeople present.
And the salespeople are just talking to a camera.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they might something will display on the screen when when they're showing how the product works or something like that. And so this face isn't always on there, so they had to keep track of that as well.
Or it cuts away to the product, close up of the product or something.
At
At least that's what they do on infomercials.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. So they kept track of emotions for happiness, sadness, surprise, anger, fear, and disgust. So those were those main emotions that they were looking at.
Okay.
And this is what they found out. So first of all,
Wait a second. Should we see?
I was gonna group.
Okay.
Well,
Should we ask the audience what they think the possible outcome would be?
yeah. So possible outcomes. Do we want to go by emotion or?
Yeah.
by emotion, or do we want? So if this is, which of these emotions? Happiness, sadness, surprise, anger, fear, and disgust. Which ones probably were a good thing to display?
Which
these
one
emotions?
probably generated more sales?
Yeah, which ones were good? Yeah, in
Okay.
actually increasing sales, and so yeah, what ones were good there, and what ones were negative? I think were some negative emotions.
When I read that list, I thought disgust was an interesting one. Because usually it's like, happy, sadness, fear. Okay, yeah, those make sense. But disgust, I was like, what does that even look like? I thought it was interesting.
I know it's not like your nose wrinkling.
But you wouldn't want to do that if
guys.
you're talking about the product that you were selling.
Dry heaving.
Cool.
I'd imagine though that you would use because the software is just picking up, just saying what's on your face.
Right.
I imagine if that's what they were doing, they were using it to say like, isn't it gross when you have like a sink that's like or dishes that are like, try this brush, This brush
Showing
is
the
like
need. Or
something. Yeah. Okay. I would imagine. Here again, I don't know. I wasn't there. But is that I think that's what's going on.
Yeah,
okay.
that makes sense.
So we've got okay. List that again. So this is imagine when the salespeople are conveying these emotions. Fear. Let's see. Happiness.
So the happiness, sadness, surprise, anger, fear, and disgust.
Okay. Which of those ones, if the salespeople emoted any of those, which one do you think would be a positive thing that would generate more sales?
Do you want me to read a response?
Oh, do we have a response already?
Yeah.
Woo!
Okay. She says, I would think that the negative emotions would do worst.
Okay.
Negative emotions worse.
Negative emotion equals less sales.
I also would probably agree.
Oh, this one's interesting. Someone else says, maybe disgust. It's a powerful emotion, as is humor.
Disgust probably being bad.
Less sales.
Oh, or are they saying that one? It's a powerful emotion, so it would generate likelihood to buy. So I'm thinking they're saying that's a good thing, right? But that would be the one that they would pick.
Yeah, because it's powerful. Yeah. Yep. And someone else said, I would
it's
guess.
so funny if you used it if you use disgust as a product, like, hey, go ahead.
I really want to sell you this drink.
Oh,
Trust me, it's
these
fabulous.
new water bottles. They're so great.
But now it's intriguing. I'd be like, what is going on? Maybe I need to get this water bottle and see what's happening.
Just taste it.
I don't know.
Wait.
Oh.
But that totally happens. So, like, at least when you smell something, like, have you ever seen that where it's like when maybe there's bad food or something, you're like, oh, smell this, it stinks. Like, like.
Yeah.
We have a need to share that, right?
And you actually want to smell it.
Like, hey, you gotta taste this. It's so gross.
That's awesome.
Okay, so should we talk?
Were there any other responses?
Yeah, one more. And this one's interesting since I know the results. It says, I would guess smiles equal more sales.
Yeah.
Smiles equal more sales.
The happier you are, the more likable you seem. Question mark.
Okay. So yeah, I mean those are really good guesses. Let's start with things like let's actually start with some of the negative ones.
Okay.
Because I think we can all agree and kind of anticipate.
I agree.
Yep, we all agree. Good. So should we move on?
Yep.
So
figured it out.
So what happens actually is so the negative emotions, drum roll, are not good. You don't want to display negative emotions, and so that's pretty clear. So when it comes to disgust, fear, anger, and sadness, those decreased sales. The more that those were displayed. Now for surprise. So surprise was actually did not do much actually at all.
Really?
Just kind of flatlined.
How can you be surprised for over a period of time?
Well, sometimes those like salespeople, and I'm thinking door-to-door sales because that's just what comes to mind. But they're like over anxious and surprised and like so excited, and sometimes that turns me away. It's like, oh, you are too excited about this carpet cleaner, and that's That's what I would guess. I don't know.
What is it? Someone reposted one of these old ads, like in the 90s or something, for what was the brush? It was the squiggle brush or something. You remember? So many squiggles. Like, you remember that lady? So funny.
That kind of surprise. It's like, that is not genuine.
We should post that. We should copy the link with this podcast or something.
And that's kind of what
that's surprise, I guess.
Some of the authors, they were kind of wondering that in the beginning. They were wondering if a seller's surprise may be a sign that the seller is trying to garner attention / liking in an attempt to make them more amiable or persuasive.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's what I imagine. That's why.
Amenable, not
amiable.
Amiable?
Amiable.
Oh, that's weird. AMEN?
Oh, amenable?
Yeah. Amenable.
Yeah,
okay. Look that word up. Come on, Weston.
Amiable. I think amiable would have also worked in that. But that's the word I would have chosen.
So now time for happiness. Happiness actually was not good either.
What?
That's surprising.
Happiness happiness was one of the stronger predictors of decreasing sales. So
even the negative emotions did better than happiness.
They weren't as bad as happiness.
Jeez.
Wow.
So yeah, it was one of the strongest ones there.
Trick question. You're all wrong.
Yeah, you are.
Thanks
all
for playing.
wrong.
You're wrong.
All of you. So which is really really interesting, like because it pretty much shows that what they found was when a salesperson is straight faced, then they sold more.
Mm.
So anytime, even with happiness, because what they anticipate is happening, and other research is kind of helps support this, is when a seller is happy, when they're displaying happiness, it may be taken as a sign that the seller is gaining in the negotiation and at the target's expense.
Mm.
So it's that's kind of the idea there that why are you happy? Should you be happy? Is that because I'm losing and you're kind of winning this argument?
Wow.
But especially
it's
like
a pretty bleak concept. Like customers are just inherently just like doing that. Like someone's smiling on screen and they're like, "Excuse me, what do you have to be happy about? Is it because you're making me suffer?
Or is it because you're going to get my money?
You're getting my money and I'm not going to have it anymore. You're tricking me." You're like,
I mean, we just kind of, and we've seen this in some of the biometric studies that we've done. Like, people they don't like to be sold to a lot of times, and so that's kind of this effect happening. So they automatically kind of, and I saw this a lot, especially when I was a used car salesman. But they immediately don't trust you, and so by showing this happiness, they automatically doubt that it's authentic.
I gotcha.
And it must be, and if it is authentic, why are you happy? It must be because you think you're going to get something out of it.
Oh, that's interesting.
But it says a similar situation occurs with politicians who sport the perma-smile. And if you're just like constantly smiling like this, then of course that's also
like
a bad thing.
Characters in TV and movies and cartoons, they kind of create a caricature around that persona. Like, oh, here's the perceived perfect picture of a politician. Some good alliteration right there. But you just but they're always just like like very very charismatic, Dudley Do-Right type of people, and it's meant to be off-putting to people, right?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
So the general, and past research has talked about this, like the perma-smile for salespeople, they get fewer votes if they do that.
They do that.
And then also in sales, the broader the smile, the worse. Like it should be more of a subtle smile. But yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, so if fortunately, we are not selling any products, but if we were, we would be failing because we're emoting and we're conveying all kinds of emotions to our live audience, right? So I'm wondering, like, what do you do then? Do you just, like, if you're selling a product, do you just become a robot and you just don't make any facial expressions and you just are straight-faced and I don't know.
Because some
What
people
do you
have
do?
really smiley
Yeah,
personalities.
you can't help it.
Yeah, yeah.
So this says to act like a robot and don't show any emotion whatsoever. Yeah, you were right.
Cool.
You guessed that right.
I am salesbot 469C here to sell you this new cleaning product.
All of a sudden, people are like pouring in and watching this.
What?
All of a sudden, it's
Gotta get some of that.
What is interesting with this, and it can kind of help, is they saw this. So as the sales presentation goes, if you're smiling toward the beginning, la la la, it dramatically, like sales dramatically drop. And this kind of goes with most of the emotions except surprise, which really didn't do like a whole lot.
Okay.
The sales drop, but then by the end of the presentation, toward the middle of the presentation, the customers are no longer thinking as much about why you are presenting, and their minds kind of shift into they're thinking a little bit more about the product and whether or not they would want to buy it at that point. And after that point, emotions, then including happiness and these other ones, become a positive thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it kind of, in the beginning, it takes a dip, and then kind of levels out, and then toward the end, rises again as you're displaying these emotions.
I see.
So one thing that you could say with that is, okay, like at the beginning of the presentation, I need to be a bit more serious, a little bit more straight-faced, but then toward the middle, you can kind of start to show a little bit of emotion.
And then at the end, really sell them on that
Go like this,
happiness and charisma.
It seems so like the opposite of what my brain would think. Like you would want to start out smiling, enthusiastic, and I'm fun, and what I'm selling is great, and you should buy this. And by the end, it doesn't matter as much. But
and then by the end, you're like, but seriously, buy it, right? No. And I imagine like if you're selling, because you don't have to be, when it says straight face, I imagine you can still have charisma, you can still have,
emotion,
vocal inflection and things that can sweeten up and make it interesting, make you sound interesting. So I imagine there's some tips there. We should ask some of our sales people friend here in the Woodbury School of Business, but we have. So if you have that kind of like in the beginning, you're just kind of talking and being kind of straight with people, but you're just like, hey, this is important. And then as you progress through it, it's almost like you're discovering it with them and you're kind of pulling them along. It almost reminds me of establishing a kind of a narrative. Kind of like it's like a 3-act story structure. In the beginning, they don't care like what emotion they're seeing on your face, because that's a little bit more nuanced. They want to know about the product. They want to know why you're doing whatever you're doing. And then as you go on, they're learning more and learning how it can be applied to their life. And then at the end, you can kind of convey the result with them, like, oh, if I take all of this information and I buy the product, then I'm going to be a lot happier, or then I'm going to solve these problems that I'm having, or whatever, So maybe it's just like you kind of lull them into telling telling them a story, right?
And we are like innately like that's what we want to hear, that kind of story. That's
Bingo.
what our brains just like, so that makes sense. Yeah.
Interesting.
I have
That's a guess.
It's a guess. I have another guess, another theory.
Okay.
So we've talked about in sales, and there's all kinds of research about this, the importance of mimicry.
Okay.
So and we've talked about like jibing and things like that. So
We have some podcast episodes, past podcast.
Jump, jibe, and sell.
Jump, jibe, and sell. And we've done, we talked about some other ones too.
Yeah, that one at least.
But definitely that one, jump, jibe, and sell.
But yeah, I mean, if and one thing that we should mention, this effect, this is for streaming when you're not really interacting with your audience. Interacting, it may be different, and if my guess as to one of the other things that could be driving this is correct, then actually communicating one-on-one where you can see them is going to produce a very different effect than streaming.
Right.
So,
and that's, I mean, definitely one-on-one interactions with salespeople. This is not advice for people who are doing one-on-one sales. Like if you're there with the person, they're talking to you, a little bit of charisma probably is going to be
But this
helpful.
makes me think of like Instagram influencers when they're selling to their phone. That's basically a live streamed infomercial, but it's on stories.
I think I
kind of
could definitely apply there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is my what I think might be going on. So if you are communicating to someone one-on-one, the research is clear. Like it's good to kind of mimic and follow their mannerisms,
right?
Because as you do that, it builds rapport. They feel like you're understanding them more,
right?
And so if somebody's happy, then you want to be happy if you're trying to sell to them. If they're kind of upset, you don't want to just be like la la la.
Yeah, if I'm not in a really social mood, but I'm going in because I've got to buy something, and some salesperson comes up with this bombastic personality, and they're like, hey, then I'm like, it's going to be a little bit of.
I made that mistake one time.
Did you?
But yeah, when I was in retail, I had this guy and his son come in, and I was like, hey, how's it going? Welcome. And he just turns to us and he's like, yeah, we're definitely in Utah Valley, huh? I'm like, okay.
Like, wow, rude. Maybe I just am generally vibing positively with life.
Gosh.
Happen to live in this town.
But I didn't read that, right? So that's what we get in one-on-one interactions.
Okay.
So Rachel, what is your face like when you are watching a live feed or just on social media? What's your face like?
You're making me smile just like this.
Just neutral.
Normal. Probably
right?
Not even that smiling.
Nothing.
So if we're going to mimic people who are watching our stream,
right?
We want a neutral face because they are neutral.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So it's kind of like, because it is different from one-on-one interactions, because the person in a one-on-one interaction is also thinking, I've got to have a little bit more of like a welcoming or kind of, they kind of put on a social facade, right? They kind of like, oh, I'm going to be interacting with someone. I'm not just going to be sitting there like totally neutral, right?
Yeah. No, once it's at the one-on-one interaction, then people are going to be displaying more emotions, and you want to mimic those emotions.
But no one's going to be just scrolling through their phone, just like with kind of like a little happy face on, like,
Unless you just found a good meme.
Yeah, unless you find something funny.
Unless you're Weston scrolling through his TikTok feed.
That's a good one. I have to send this to everyone I know.
So yeah, I think that's about it.
That's a good. Yeah, no, that sounds pretty likely.
So I guess if we're gonna wrap it up, the plain advice, right,
yeah,
is don't let your emotions be too drastic,
right,
when you're streaming, especially toward the beginning of a presentation,
right.
But then definitely toward the middle is when you can kind of let your personality go.
Let
like
it
we're
shine.
talking about, let it shine.
Let your Hulk come out.
And so yeah, even happy emotions, it's very different, right? But then again, this only applies in streaming kind of occasions, not with one-on-one communication.
Right. And I guess, I mean, if we're talking about tips, like, I mean, because a lot of people think like, oh, I'm gonna show a lot of like this thrilled personality in order to get attention, in order to get people to pay attention and draw people in. So maybe, but if that's going to hinder your sales, then maybe don't do that, and maybe find other ways to grab attention in the beginning. Find some other way, something else you can do rather than just
that's not your emotion.
Yeah,
or your
maybe
excitement.
something that concentrates more on the product. I don't know.
Because those emotions that you're using trying to get people in might just be doing the exact opposite, because people will think, oh, you're intentionally trying to get me to watch this.
Yeah,
I'm kind of in relaxing mode, and you have so much energy, you're exhausting me while I'm sitting here.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. You're sitting and scrolling. Yeah, it's like I don't want to do anything. I'm tuning out, and if you want me to tune in, it's too hard.
Right.
Skip.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, one last thing, kind of like where we go from here. You were kind of talking about before, because all of this data comes from like real world data, or what's the distinction there? Because it's not experimental.
Yeah,
right?
it's kind of, no, it's not experimental. So this is real world. This would be like a field study, in a way, right?
Field data.
They just grabbed a lot of this data, and they use a lot of different variables, a lot of different metrics to kind of control for, who is it that's selling, what time of day is it, like
Right.
all these different things that could also account for it, right? They're running those in the analysis at the same time to try to control for those things, but yeah, it's not an experiment, and so in with this type of data, it's not causation, it's correlation,
Right.
These things are related.
And you were talking about, kind of explain, like, you were talking about there's benefits to both.
Yeah. So for an experiment, a way that we would do this with an experiment where you can kind of show causation would be, hey, we're going to, have people watch this stream event, and maybe you have actors or something, and they're smiling in one case as they're selling the product, or they're just straight faced.
Right. And you can do like, you can have one aspect, you can change one aspect between the two experiments that shows, but have everything else try and be the same. So their script would be the same, their pacing would be the same.
You're just kind of making that small tweak, which is something like that'd be kind of a difficult experiment to really get like that strong, like, okay, we've only changed the smile every once in a while versus not, right? But if you're able to do that, then the advantage there is like, okay, this is very clear causation. Smiling decreased sales, right? Then the question is, all right, we really did a lot of work in manipulating this just right. Is that going to work in the real world?
If we apply it into a natural setting, does the same thing apply?
Which is the advantage of having a field study like this, where you just have data, because that's okay. This is working in the real world, right? But then you just can't say, you can't claim causality, because you don't have those very clear conditions. So
right, and I think you said experimental data can more explore the why, right?
Yeah,
Or do I have it
experimental.
backwards?
No, that's
Right.
right. Yeah, you can with experimental data, it's easier a lot of times to figure out the why.
The why.
What's going on.
Interesting.
Cool.
Well, that is great. I think that's an interesting topic. Remind me the name of the title of the study.
It is.
It's a fun one.
A new live stream retail analytics framework to assess the sales impact of emotional displays.
They really get the titles of those studies. They get them.
Academics were really good at naming.
They are so
research.
good.
Really good.
No, it's a lot of fun, but that's, so for anyone who wants to look into that, that's the name of the study, and I don't know how many people would want to, but, it's there, and we have covered that topic. It's really cool. Maybe we can figure out some ways to, we've kind of talked about some ways to apply it. If anyone has if someone works in some sort of industry where you can put this into practice, go ahead and try it out and tell us what the results are. That would be really cool to know if it actually helps someone.
Yeah, because it's going to completely counter what your intuition is going to say.
Right. But other than that, thank you for tuning in live and listening to our podcast, the Shadûf podcast, and join us next time.
Ba-doop-boop.